Hi everyone, I'm just gonna start with a video. It's the latest trailer of our video game that we're launching, or launched, on Tencent's WeGame platform. All right, that's Rising Fire. That's what a 200 million plus video game looks like. We built it for 65, and I'll get into why we have such a competitive advantage in terms of the capex that's required to produce a AAA content video game like that. In 2006, we started as a private company. We were the outsourced partner for Epic Games. Epic Games, everyone knows as the creator of Fortnite, that made $5 billion last year. What we did with Epic Games is that we took their content and their frameworks and we developed content inside of our studio in Shanghai where we had 400 developers working for us. We turned around that content at a very low price compared to North American counterparts. And in that sense, we had a part to play in multiple video games that Epic had released, including Gears of War and Fortnite itself. 2011, because our developers became so in tune with using the back-end Unreal Engine to build video games, we started developing our own. 2009, we produced our first video game called Fat Princess, which we ended up selling to Sony. And in 2011, we introduced a game to the market called Mars. Now, Mars took us $3.6 million to make, and year to date has generated $65 million US. The P&L, great, but it never saturated the market fully based on 23 million downloads, which we had. 23 million downloads on an average per download revenue split should generate or yield about $400 to $500 million in the largest video game market in China. The reason that we couldn't get there is because distribution and lack thereof. We are video game developers, we're not distributors. What Mars did for us is two things. One, it allowed us afforded us the confidence to be capable to produce a AAA content video game. And two, it attracted Tencent to us. Tencent came to us in 2012 and told us that, Mars, you guys did a great job with it. AAA content, fully immersive, graphics are great, but it's a little over-spec'd for the distribution for the typical Asian gamer. Let's build a video game together, and then we'll distribute it on our Tencent's WeGame platform. So in 2014, we signed the publishing deal with Tencent, started making the video game that you just saw the video of called Rising Fire. We launched it after 2 years of testing, 2 levels of alpha, 2 levels of beta testing on the WeGame platform last year in June 28th, and we're just on the precipice of launching it to the further dissemination round, which is 15 million. So how it works, especially on Tencent's portfolio, is that they control 300 million daily video game players. And this game, Rising Fire, has a rollout phase plan. The first phase was June 28th to 1.5 million people. The next phase, which we are going to be commencing on February 5th on Chinese New Year, is to 15 million people of the 300 million. The following phase, once we get there later this year, it'll be to 100 million plus users. Now, that means that's very significant because what it tells you is two things. One, our game has been able to move from testing into pre-beta, into open beta. In order to move between sections of dissemination, you need to attain a sticky factor or a retention rate. And in order for Tencent to have the confidence to release their video game on the biggest platform in the world, we need to surpass these thresholds. So we have been slowly surpassing them for the last 3 years, and we hope to be out to 15 million plus in 2 to 3 months. Just a little bit on Tencent. Tencent's the largest video game company in the world. They made $18 billion in 2017 on video games alone. They have the We World platform, which includes WeChat, WePay, and WeGames. So WeGames, 1/3 of their business, generated $18 billion alone. You can see the comparison of other major North American Fortune 500 companies and the amount that they've generated from video games. Obviously, Sony is a little bit of a distant second. For the resource investors out there, Sony at $10.5 billion made just a fraction over the NewCo of Goldcorp and Newmont that collectively generated $10 billion of revenue last year. So you can understand how big video gaming is, but then how big Tencent is as the world's leader in that space. This is the pipeline. Why I like this slide is because it shows us what we had to go through in order to get this game published on June 28th. So it's not we turn on the taps and go, developers go and make a video game. We have a framework in which we had to adhere to. Tencent, by sheer virtue of their size, they have almost 1 billion users on their We World platform. They're one of the largest data generators or aggregators in the world. They pass on the most pertinent data that they collect about the video game space, about current video game players on their network, and they give it to us. Our developers digest that information and apply it to every single update that we put forth and send to Tencent. So how it works is we delivered the game, they tested the game, 300,000 people, based on the feedback from those 300,000 people, and these are alpha game players that get invited to be alpha and beta testers. They give us feedback. Predicated on the feedback, we compartmentalize it, apply it to the game, and then send them a new build or a new update. Very typical in the gaming industry, and the best example that everyone will resonate with are the new seasons in Fortnite. Every season introduces a slightly augmented version of the game, and it changes from season to season. So that's exactly what we've gone through up until open beta launch. Like I said, it was June 28th of last year. This is a comparison on the retention rates. Why this slide is very, very important for Axion Ventures is because Rising Fire at 54% retention, that was just before pre-open beta. We were always benchmarked against an existing game in Tencent's portfolio, and that existing game is NiZham, and that's their revenue profile for the first 4 years of dissemination on Tencent's WeGame platform. Since the start of our relationship with Tencent, we have always been making this game, or it's been purpose-built to replace NiZham. NiZham, it's in its 8th year, still generating $350 to $400 million for Tencent, but it's at the tail end of a typical video game in terms of its revenue curve. So it's always been the case that Rising Fire will supplant NiZham, but NiZham is only a player versus environment game. So it's basically you walking into the map and playing against the AI. Rising Fire has player versus environment, player versus player, and Battle Royale. Now, player versus player is 4-on-4, 6-on-6 online. Battle Royale is 100 people on an island, popularized by Fortnite and PUBG, and we have all 3 game modes. Just a little bit more on retention rates. These are the retention rates that we have that we received up until last week, which gave Tencent the confidence that this game will be a success, and in turn, they are launching it from 1.5 million people to 15 million people on Chinese New Year. Moving forward, in terms of our corporate strategy, so the distribution contract that we signed with Tencent gave them the distribution rights for our game Rising Fire, the PC version only, within the Chinese market. They have 74% revenue share, we have 26% revenue share. We still hold or retain all licensing for Rising Fire on both the mobile and the PC version all around the world, including the mobile version within China, which is something that we're happy to still have because, as everyone knows, the mobile market has grown significantly more than the PC and the console market in the last 6 years. So on that topic, we are in negotiations for Rising Fire being released in 3 other markets. One in Latin America with a distributor called Level Up. Level Up is a subsidiary of Tencent, mutually exclusive to our deal with Tencent, but nonetheless, Latin America is one of the quickest growing markets in the world. Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is an important one for us because we have a joint venture studio in Bangkok. with CP Group. CP Group is a $26 billion agricultural supplier and chicken farmer, but now that the children are coming of age, they are big video game players. They want to turn Bangkok into the video game mecca of Southeast Asia. So we joint ventured them, and currently the studio in Bangkok has 120 developers that are working on mutual other titles. We're obviously going to be trying to release Rising Fire in that market very soon. Japan, Korea represents the third largest market in the world. We're in discussions with Gung Ho, which is one of their main video game distributors. So what this means is that we are focused on China. China is the largest market in the world, but we're not avoiding the rest of the world. Game portfolio. Rising Fire represents our flagship project, the video that you saw, that video game. We have 9 other video games in our portfolio that we've been quietly working on for the last 18, 24 months. 3 of those games, the ones you see here, will be launching this year in Q2 and Q3. Basically what these games are, they're not as large, don't have the capability of Rising Fire to generate as high torque revenue because they're just not as large. We haven't put as much time into them, but what they do is they plug into very specific niche markets on both mobile and the PC side. And one thing that I will add, we're not an esports company. We purpose-built video games for the esports platform. So the more that our games can be ingrained or disseminated throughout the esports platforms, the more money and capital that comes into the company, in essence, gets transferred over to revenue. Just a quick summary, Rising Fire is launched in the largest video game market in the world by the largest video game distributor in the world. We do expect the sales numbers coming in from Rising Fire at some point this year, and that will be from the accumulated total of us being released to 15 million people on Tencent's network. We retain all global PC and mobile rights for Rising Fire, including the mobile rights in China, which is a leverage on our side for once we prove out the IP in China. We have a history of building video games. We built 2 video games that have yielded incredible results from a P&L standpoint, but the one thing that we've always been missing is distribution. So we found the answer to that question or that issue with Tencent. Tencent is the largest video game distributor in the world, and they have taken Rising Fire, our 100% owned IP, and they've taken it through the ringer in terms of testing to make sure they have a recipe for success in launching video games, and the amount of testing that they applied to us gives us credence and belief that our game will be successful, and I hope to be here next year telling you just that and how successful. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, contact info is right here, or just visit our website, axionventures.com.